Hello everyone, welcome to the theory. This is going to be covering lesson 29. So we will cover lesson 29 today. And before we get started, let's go ahead and do our evaluation. All right, you ready? This is covering lesson 28. Number 1, vanity. Vanity. She puts vanity in front of everything else. Number 2, table. Put the keys on the table. Number 3, opportunity. Opportunity. Number 4, Twitter. Twitter. Number 5, position. Position. Number 6, twitch. Does your eye ever twitch? Number 7, activity. Activity. Number 8, majority. Majority. The majority won the vote. Number 9, wobble. Wobble. Number 10, dexterity. Dexterity. Number 11, twang. Twang. Number 12, suitable. Suitable. Number 13, cavity. Cavity. Number 14, tomorrow. Tomorrow. Number 15, ability. Ability. All right, let's look at those on the board and compare. I want you to compare to your steno, see how you did. Okay, so number 1 is vanity, and that would be V-A-N-T. Number 2, table, T-long-A-B-L. Number 3, opportunity, T-U-N-T. Number 4, Twitter, T-W-I-T, come back for E-R. Number 5, position, P-O-G-S, for the shun. Number 6, twitch, T-W-I-F-P. Number 7, activity, A-K, come back for T-I, final V, come back for I-T. So just remember, even though it might be possible for some, we're still going, anytime we have the final V, we're going to come back for IT. Okay, it's just too hard to do in higher speeds. So we want you to, if you have a word that has the final V in there, come back for final IT for the IDI. Okay, activity is a great example of one of those words. Okay, then we've got majority. So there's 2 ways you can write that. You can either write that as M-A, final J, come back for long O-R-T, or you can write it as M-A, come back for J, long O-R-T. It's wherever you hear the break, either majority or majority. Either one works. Then we have wobble, W-O-B-L. Dexterity, initial D-E-X. Come back for T-E-R-T. Then we've got twang, T-W long A-N-G. Suitable, and that's going to be written as S long U-T. Come back for final B-L. Now, if you're a great speller and you know that that is spelled with the A-B-L-E, you can write it as S long U-T. Come back for A-B-L. Okay, it doesn't matter. Either way works. But I'm going to tell you now, if you even have to stop and think about it, just come back for your final BL, and that way you know that you've written it correctly. Okay? So you can always put it in your dictionary both ways, and that way, no matter what, it's going to come up. But if you have to stop and think about it and ask yourself, is it I-B-L-E or A-B-L-E, then just come back for final BL. Okay? Cavity. K-A final V, come back for I-T. You have to use the I, otherwise it would look like the. So I-T. Tomorrow, T-O-R-M, that's our brief. And ability, our brief ability, A-B-L-T. All right, so if you struggled with those, just go ahead and go back before you start lesson 29 and practice lesson 28 again. Okay. All right, so today we're going to focus on final MT for words ending in MENT or words ending in MPT. So it's an easy stroke. We're using our middle ring and pinky to strike the final MT. Okay, so let's look at the first line. We've got comment, K-O-M-T, comment. And again, it's like all of the ending strokes that we've been learning with the itty and the shun words. We want to add that final MT in the same stroke when it's possible. Now, it's not always possible because sometimes our fingers are on another letter. So in that case, then we have to come back for final MT. Okay, but comment, we can do it all in one stroke. Same with the next word, payment. P long A-M-T, payment. Okay, second sentence or second line, pavement. Now, again, this is just like the last set of words that we were talking about. With the ends, with a B, as in pavement, you're going to want to come back for final MT. So we've got our fingers on P long A, B, come back for final MT. Now let's look at exempt. The final MT words are a lot like the final BL words, the able, ibble. You can use the vowel or you can just come back for the final MT when you have to come back for the MT in a separate stroke. So if you're not a great speller or if you even have to think about it, again, I'm going to just emphasize in speeds you will not have time to think about it. So if you even have to think, okay, does it end in, what vowel does it end before the MT or MENT, then you're going to want to just use the MT. So we've got exempt. So you can either do it as EX, come back for EMT, or you can just write it as EX, come back for final MT. Okay, either one works. Now that rule only applies when you have to come back for final MT. When you have a word, let's see, let me find a word here so I can show you. Look at line 5. The first word says supplement. So we're going to write that as S-U-P, but because we're writing L-E-M-T all in one stroke, then we are not going to delete the E here. We're going to keep that in there, L-E-M-T, lament. Okay? All right. Let's see. Line 3, element. Again, it's showing you. You can either use the EMT or you just come back for final MT. Filament, same thing. FIL, come back for final MT, or you can write it as FIL, come back for AMT. Or you can put it, when you get into speeds, put it both ways in your dictionary. That way, Sometimes I will do one way and then I'll switch over for some reason. So I've got it both ways in my dictionary, and I always know it's going to show up because I've got it both ways in the dictionary. Okay. Line 4, sediment, SED, come back for IMT, or SED, come back for MT. Either way is okay. It doesn't matter. Tenement, TEN, come back for EMT, or TEM, come back for final MT. We talked about supplement. We're keeping the vowel in there because we write SUP, come back for LEMT. Adjustment, A. Remember, we just strike the A when we have words that start with A, and they come back for JUFT. Remember our ST, we borrow the F of the S. Come back for final MT, adjustment. Achievement, A, come back for KH, long E, final V, come back for final MT. Improvement. Now, here you've got a choice. You can either you can either use the O the way that it's spelled, IM, come back for PROV, come back for final MT, or you can write it the way that it sounds, IM, come back for PR long UV, because you hear that prove, come back for final MT. Either one works, okay? Inducement. Then we have basement. Line 8, foment. That can be done in one stroke. F long OMT, foment. Ailment. Long AL, come back for final MT. Movement. Amazement. Then we have assignment. Retirement. Notice that retirement is two strokes. Re, come back for T, long IRMT. If our finger's on the R, we can still strike the MT. Okay. Predicament. Again, you can come back for the AMT or just come back for the final MT. Advisement. Now here we're using our brief for advise. VIZ, come back for final MT. Argument. We're using our brief for argue, ARG. Okay. And then come back for final MT. Embarrassment, disbursement, postponement, dislodgement. Don't forget we're using our J because of the sound. Dislodge, LO, final J, come back for final MT. Misplacement. Okay, looking on over, 29.1 continues on the next page. Okay, now, cement. Some people say cement, some people say cement. So you're going to write it the way that you hear it. Okay, I say cement, but some people say cement. So that's why you see it with the short E versus a long E. Okay, attempt, ornament, monument, concealment. Notice with concealment, we're using our AE reversal there because of the spelling. Okay. All right. Looking on over at 29.2, we've got practice sentences that focus on these new words. Let's look at line 1. The second sentence says use bricks and cement mortar. Mortar is going to be written as M long OR. Come back for TAR, mortar. Let's look at line 4, second sentence over. It says comment on the recent news. Now, a lot of people, a lot of students in the past have wanted to come back for final Z for news, but because the S is part of the word, it's not, news is not considered, that's not the plural form of the word. It is, the S is part of the word. So in that case, we're going to write it in one stroke. N long U-Z, news, one stroke. Okay. Line 8, second sentence, they are fomenting a riot. Riot is going to be written as R long I, come back for OT. Line 13, first sentence, the new monument will be bronze. Bronze is going to be written as B-R-O-N-Z, bronze. Okay. Again, if it helps you, go through and underline any phrases so that you don't overlook anything like that. Okay. All right. 29.2 continues to the next page. Line 18, first sentence, it is a considerable improvement. Again, you have the choice with considerable. You can either write it as KR, come back for final ABL. I'm sorry, K final R, not, this would be credit. Consider K final R, come back for final ABL, or K final R, come back for final BL. Okay, so again, you have a choice there. It's like the final MT words. You can choose to use that vowel or not. Line 19, first sentence, it was a nutritional supplement. Don't forget about your shun words, nutritional. That's going to be written as N long U. Come back for T-R-I, shun. Come back for A-L. Okay. Everything else looks good there. Just a reminder, line 26, second sentence over, that inducement will tempt me. Tempt is just going to be written as T-E-M-T, tempt, like it sounds. Okay. All right, moving on into 29.3, we've got some briefs. The first brief we have is figure. Notice that it's initial F, final G. I've had students in the past want to add the I there. You don't want to add the I, that will conflict with fig, okay? So figure is initial F, final G, no I. Then we have dozen, D-O-Z. Follow, F-O-L. Invoice, initial V-O-I. Again, I've had students try to add that S in there. That will conflict with voice. So it's voy, V-O-I. Same with balance. Balance is B-A-L-S. Okay. Don't write it as B-A-L. That will conflict with the ball that you bounce. Okay, so balance is B-A-L-S. Manufacture, initial M, final F-er. And witness is initial W, final N-S. And we went over the witness a few lessons ago when we started our Q&A briefly. So don't get that confused with the witness. If you remember what I said, when we want to tell our software that we want the witness all in caps, we would strike WNS twice, witness, witness. And that will tell our software that we want the witness all in caps. And we're showing that that is an identified speaker, okay? So this witness, WNS, struck one time, just means the word witness, like, were you a witness in the accident? Okay, so don't get that confused with the witness, which we strike twice. And that's why we do that. Okay, 29.4 is a brief practice drill using all of our new briefs, and there's a few in there from previous lessons maybe. 29.5, we've got practice sentences using our new briefs. If you look at line 7, the first sentence says, we figured out the enigma. Enigma is going to be written as E-N, come back for I-G, come back for M-A, enigma. That just means a mystery. We figured out the mystery. Line 13, first sentence says, follow that route to town. Now, some people say route. If they say route, you're going to write it as R long U-T. If they say route, you're going to write it as R-O-U-T. So you want to, when you get into speeds, put both of those entries into your dictionary. So no matter what, it's going to come up. Spelled the same, but there's two different ways to say it, like tomato, tomato. Okay, looking straight across. The next sentence says, I will follow you if I can. We can phrase if I can. F-I-K. Thick. If I can. Line 16, second sentence says, which course are you following? That course is K-O-U-R-S. The course with the long O, K long O-R-S, would be I have coarse hair. Okay, so don't get those confused. Looking on over at 29.5, practice sentences continued. Line 18, second sentence, it was manufactured in France. We want to flag France, F-R-A with the flag N-S, France. It's not a long A. It's not France. All right. Everything else there looks pretty self-explanatory. If you have questions about anything, let me know. 29.6 are consonant compounds. So today we're going to focus on initial SM and initial SN. SM, SN. Okay, first line, we've got small. That's a broad A. S-M-A-U-L, small. Smirk. Smite is a long I. Smut. Line 2, smooth. S-M-A-O-G-T. Remember our rule. Anything with O-O, we use our A-O on our machine. Smog, that's a broad A sound, but it's spelled with an O, so we keep it with an O. S-M-O-G. Smart, smack, smell. Now, Smith, that it's capitalized because we're using it as a last name, so go ahead and flag that. S-M with the flag I-G-T. Smudge, S-M-U-J. Smoke, long O. Smile, long I. Smelt. Smash, S-M-A-R-B. Smidgen, S-M-I-J. Come back for E-N. Line 5, smock. Smother, S-M-O-G-T. Come back for E-R. Smug, smorgasbord. There's two ways you can write that. You can either write that as S-M, long O-R, come back for G-A-S, come back for B, long O-R-D, or you can write it as S-M, long O-R-G, come back for A-S, come back for B, long O-R-D. Either way works. Depends on where you hear the break. Smorgasbord. Line 6, smut, smolt. Smolt is a long O. Smear, S-M-A-E-R. Smooch, S-M-A-O-F-P. Line 7, snack, snit. Sneak, S-N-A-E-K. Snail, long A. Snitch, S-N-I-F-P. Snare, long A. Snap, snag. Snow, long O. Snodgrass, again, we're using that as a last name, so you don't have to flag that one because it is two strokes. S-N-O-D, come back for G-R-A-S. Snore, long O. Sniff, snoop, S-N-A-O-P. Sniper, again, you have two ways you can write that. You can either write it as S-N, long I-P, come back for E-R, or you can write it as S-N, long I, come back for P-E-R. Depends on where you hear the break. Snake, long A. Snip, snuff. Sneeze, S-N, long E-Z. Sneer, long E. Snob, snot, snug, snub. Snooze, S-N-A-O-Z. Snood, S-N-A-O-D. Snort, long O. Snide, long I. Snoot, S-N-A-O-T. Snazzy, S-N-A-Z, come back for A-E, snazzy. Sniffly, S-N-I-F, come back for L-A-E. Snippet, S-N-I-P, come back for E-T. and sneaker, S-N-A-E-K, come back for E-R. All right, 29.7, these are practice sentences using our new consonant compounds. If you look over at line 4, second sentence, it says tour the smelting plant. Tour is a long U, T long U R. Okay, everything else there looks great. 29.7 on the next page are sentences that are continued. Line 18, second sentence over, cover your mouth if you sneeze. Cover is K-O-F-R. Line 19, second sentence, he said Johnny was a snitch. Johnny, J-O-N, come back for A-E. Let's look at snorkel. There's 3 different ways. That's in line 20. First sentence, use the snorkel for air. Now, you can either write that as S-N, long O-R-K, come back for E-L, or you can write it as S-N, long O-R-K, come back for L, leave off the E, kind of like the MT words, final MT words we've been doing with the vowel. Or you can write it as S-N, long O-R, come back for K-E-L. It's totally up to you. They're all 2 strokes, so either way works. Okay, next sentence over, Gloria is a real snob. Gloria is going to be initial G-L, long O-R, come back for medial Y-A. Gloria. Gloria. Everything there looks good after Gloria. We don't really have to go over everything. If you have any questions on anything, please ask. All right. Now we're going to talk about Q&A 3. Again, we're still working on strictly Q&A. The last Q&A, we used the defense attorney, and today we're going back to plaintiff attorney. I like to switch it up so you get lots of practice with both. Before we start this, actually, you know what? I will talk about some of the different things that are marked up on this handout after I read it to you. I'm strictly reading it to you right now for practice. This is practice only. The homework part of it is going to be for you to physically look at it and write it at your own pace. Okay, so you're going to, again, let's go over some of the rules. You're not putting ending punctuation. You're leaving off ending punctuation, but you are adding the internal punctuation. So on line 2, if you're physically looking at this, you would write yes and then strike your comma. I did, but you would not put your period because that's ending punctuation, and then you would strike your Q after that. Okay, but for now, I'm going to read this to you for practice because you need to get used to hearing the speaker dictate to you, and you need to learn how to write what you hear. And then after that, I'm going to go over some of the punctuation that you're going to notice on this Q&A, okay? All right. So we're going to use plaintiff attorney. And you want to phrase as much as possible. Use your briefs just like you would if you were doing a homework assignment. If you make a mistake, you're going to strike your asterisk key. And if you hear any proper names, which you will in this one, you're just writing it phonetically. You want a readable outline, so write it phonetically. And then at the end, if this were a test, I would give you a word list with all the proper names, so just know that that would always come your way afterwards. Okay? All right. And again, because I'm dictating this to you, you're not going to worry about any punctuation. I want you strictly to focus on the sign changes and the words. That's it. So let's talk about our sign changes. This is plaintiff attorney. So when you sign in and you strike the question, that's going to be your STKPWHR. Then when you go to identify the witness or the answer, you're going to strike the EFR PBLGTS. Okay? So this one's done with your left hand, this one's done with your right hand. Okay? All right. Here we go. And with this one, I'm not going to say question, answer. I want you to keep your eyes on the board, and I want you to realize when it's time to sign in a different speaker. So you have to pay attention to that, okay? All right, so go ahead and identify your question. And then from here on, I'm only reading the question and the answer. I'm not going to say who is speaking. Okay, so you can get used to that. All right, here we go. Ready? Did you ever work with him? Yes, I did. And did you work as a team when you worked with him? Yes, sir. Okay. How long did you work with him as a team member? Oh, about 4 months. So, as of November 21, you weren't working with him then. Is that right? Would you say that one more time? Sure. As of November 21, you were not working with Mr. King as a team member? You mean on the day of the accident? That is right. We worked as a team. You did work as a team. On the day of the accident, yes. Were you in the truck? He was in at the time of this accident. No, I wasn't. You were in a different truck. Is that right? Yes. All right. Did you ever go out to dinner or meet Mr. King at his home or anything? No. When was the last time you saw Joe King? Well, I am not sure. He transferred to a different yard. He was working with me in my yard, but he transferred about 2 months ago. You haven't seen him for the last 2 months? No, I haven't. Have you ever talked to him within the last 2 months? No, I haven't. Okay. So let's go over this Q&A. If you struggled with that, I don't want you to be hard on yourself. There's a lot to think about. You've got sign changes to worry about and words to get down. So just a few tips. If you did struggle, make sure that you are phrasing as much as possible. That is huge. It's going to help tremendously. That's why we phrase. If you are, writing, for example, have you ever, you can phrase have you ever, initial V-U effer, things like that. That's going to save you 2 strokes if you phrase the whole thing. So make sure you phrase. If you get caught up on a word and you feel like you may have made a mistake, but I am moving on, just continue to move on. Okay, if you don't have time to fix it, move on. Chances are, if that were a test, you probably are going to be able to figure out what you wrote and figure out what your misstroke is. Okay, so just remember that. Okay, there's a lot to think about in the beginning. I want you to physically look at this Q&A. And this is a good example of if you made a mistake. On line 8, it says, oh, about 4 months. So technically, you probably should have wrote out 4, F-O-U-R. But if you accidentally struck the 4 on your number bar, it's okay. It just means that the number 4 is going to show up. But if that were a test or a job, you would go in and change that number 4 to the word for, because we have that rule, 10 and under, we write it out, we spell it out. So don't let that stop you. Just continue to move on. And always know that if that were a test, once you get into Speeds, you're going to have 2 hours to edit your test and fix it. Okay, so that's a lot of time to be able to go through and read your notes and figure out if you misstroked or if you wrote something incorrectly and you're in the edit mode, so you're going to be able to change things. Okay, adding your punctuation and all of that. All right, now notice in line 2 it says, yes, comma, I did. So we talked about that in the last Q&A. Anytime we have yes, I did, no, I didn't, we always have a comma after that. The only time we use a period is if the witness adds an answer that was not asked of them. If, for instance, that first question, did you ever work with him? If the answer were, if the person were to say, yes, I did, and yes, I did, or let's see, yes, I worked with him since we were young kids, I would put a period there because he didn't ask how long. He asked, have you ever worked with him? And he said, yes, I did. So he's strictly answering the question. If they add any part of that, if any part of that answer is added that was not asked, then you're going to follow the yes or the no with a period. Okay. Notice in line 6, you've got okay, period. Line 8, oh, comma, about 4 months. Again, 4 is spelled out. Let's look at line 9. So, as of November 21, comma, that is what we call an adverb clause. As of November 21, comma, you need a comma after that, after 21, because even if you didn't have so there, if that started with as of November 21, you need a comma there because it's an adverb clause. Okay? You weren't working with him then. Notice there's a semicolon. This is huge. I want you to highlight the semicolon. Anytime we have is that right or is that correct, you're going to use a semicolon. Okay? Anytime, and you're going to see that over and over with transcripts. Is that right? Is that correct? You need a semicolon before that. Okay. Now, if you just have correct or right, you have the choice to either use a semicolon or just a comma. If you just have correct or right, okay. But is that correct? Is that right? You need a semicolon before that. Okay. Now let's look at line 11. That's the answer. It says, would you say that one more time? A lot of you may be asking, why does that have a period there and not a question? Because it starts with would. Well, the answer to that is it's a command. It's not a question. He's not asking, would you say that one more time? It's a command. Would you say that one more time? So you need a period there because it's a command. Okay? Line 12, sure, period. And again, you guys, when you are writing this, it's not going to be, when you're in speeds, you're not going to have time to throw in a lot of punctuation because your focus is getting the sign changes. Whoever is speaking, you want to get those sign changes and get the words. And just know that you will have 2 hours if this were a test in speeds, you have 2 hours to edit your test. So that's when you're going to add all your punctuation. Okay? I'm having you add the punctuation when you turn this in for homework because it's not a timed thing. I'm not dictating it to you. You're physically looking at it, and I want to make sure you understand that you are to enter the internal punctuation if you have time and not adding the ending punctuation. Okay, that's strictly the only reason why I'm having you do that. Okay, now line 12, sure, period, as of November 21, comma, you were not working with Mr. King as a team member. This were a test. In speeds, Mr. King would be on the word list, so you're going to write King, K-I-N-G, with the flag. Okay, hopefully you phrased you were. That would save a stroke. That's why you learn those phrases in theory. So again, I want you to be practicing your briefs and phrases every day. Okay, get out your address book that you're adding to and practice those. And just when you get into speeds, that doesn't mean to stop practicing. You still practice those every day. You don't want to forget those. Now, let's look at line 14. It says, you mean on the day of the accident? Now, our software probably is not going to recognize that this is an answer. This is the witness asking a question. The software is pretty intelligent, but a lot of times it's not going to recognize if the witness is asking a question. It knows that the witness usually gives an answer. So in that case, if you see a period there because you struck the question after that, it's okay. That just means if that were a test or a job, you'd go in the edit mode and change that period to a question because he's asking a question. You mean on the day of the accident? The software thinks that because that's an answer, it needs a period. So it's probably going to do that. Same with line 15, question. Okay, the software is going to know this is the attorney and it's a question, but he's not questioning. He's saying that is right. So if you get a question there, you're going to change that to a period. You would do that in the edit mode. Okay. All right. Again, look at line 23. You were in a different truck. Is that right? So you need to practice your briefs. Is that right? Is that correct? S-T-H-A, final R-T for is that right? S-T-H-A, final R-K for is that correct? Notice the semicolon before is that right? Okay. Let's look at line 25. All right, period. Did you ever, so hopefully you phrase, did you ever, did you ever go out to dinner or meet Mr. King at his home or anything? Answer no. Line 3, when was the last time you saw Joe King? Again, you're going to write Joe as J long O with the flag, and you'll have a word list if that were a test. Or if that were a job, you'd write that down. Okay. Line 4, well, comma, I am not sure, period. He transferred to a different yard, period. Make sure you don't have run-on sentences. Okay, when you get into speeds, if you have a run-on sentence, that's -1. So those add up quickly. Okay, if you have a noun and a verb, that is your complete sentence. You don't want to have run-on sentences. So in this sentence, he transferred to a different yard. He is your noun. Transferred is your verb. He transferred to a different yard, period. He was working with me in my yard. So he is your noun. Was working is your verb. With me in my yard. Now let's talk about conjunctions. But he transferred about 2 months ago. So we've got but there. Now, when you have a noun and a verb after the conjunction, which we do, he transferred, he is our noun, transferred is our verb, then you have to have a comma before but. The only time you would not have a comma is if after the conjunction you're missing a noun or a verb. For instance, if it were to say, he was working with me in my yard, but transferred about 2 months ago. If we leave out he, then we wouldn't have a noun on each side of the conjunction but. So then we would not need a comma. We would not use a comma. But we've got he was working before the conjunction, and after the conjunction but, we have he transferred. So we have a noun and a verb on each side, so we have to have that comma. Otherwise it would be -1 on a speed test. Okay. Notice 2 is TWO. And again, line 9, have you ever? Hopefully you phrase that, VU-effer, have you ever? Use those phrases. That's why you learn them in theory. Okay, so again, this is the way this Q&A should look as far as, you know, when you go to transcribe it. This is exactly the way that it should look. So really look this over. Look at the punctuation. Look where your tabs are. Okay. This would be going back to the first page here. The line 1, you would tab over 1 time. Add your, notice the Q&As are all in capital letters. You would add your Q there and then tab again. Did you ever work with him in Iraq? Next line, tab once. There's your A, tab again. Yes, I did. Okay, so really look this over so you can start to get familiar with the way that the transcript is supposed to look like. Okay, all right, so again, for this one, I want you to strictly write it. I only want you to turn in the steno. There's going to be a day where I want you to actually transcribe it, but not yet. Okay, I'm just trying to get you used to writing it, and I want to make sure you're writing it correctly with your sign changes. Okay, so make sure you add your sign changes in there, and that concludes our lesson 29, and I will see you soon in the read back portion of this lesson. Have a great day.